Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Southwest Virginia fishing report with Matt Reilly. How you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great, Marvin. How are you?
Just trying to stay out of trouble. How's the water after all that rain that came through your neck of the woods? I don't know, probably 4 or 5 days ago.
Yeah. It's honestly, it's not as bad as it could have been. We've got it a lot better down here than for sure some of the guys up on the James and sort of central northern Virginia area, but it's still, as the rivers ride right now, it's kind of frustrating. They're bank full, and any little bit of rain we get, like we got some on Monday, kind of pushes it over the edge. So, thankfully, the lower New being a tailwater to some degree, it's dam controlled. It's not chocolate milk, so that's nice, but it's definitely been bank full, and the level's been fluctuating, a couple hundred cubic feet, day to day. So it's just kind of rolling with the punches and trying to do our best and stay on fish, which, we've been catching fish, but it's, some days with a little higher than optimal flows, it gets kind of tough, but yeah, thankfully we're still in the game, and hopefully, we don't have a crazy amount of rain in the forecast, so it should get better from here on out. And I'm hoping, sometime probably next week we'll be sort of back to consistently decent flows.
Got it. And so what are your suggestions for folks that want to get out and chase smallmouth over the Labor Day weekend?
I would say, just for certain, keep an eye on stream flows, check the USGS stream flow gauges, and just make sure that those flows are, whether you're floating or wading, probably not going to be doing too much wading on the bigger rivers, to be honest. But if you're floating, just keep an eye on them, make sure they're sort of in the safe realm, not any more than, twice what the seasonal average is right now. And like the lower New, I wouldn't float probably above like the 6,000 cubic foot range at Radford. Anything below that, above 5,000 is still high, but you're not going to get as long as you avoid the major whitewater features, you're not going to get into too much trouble. But just be mindful and sort of err on the safe side. But otherwise, as far as fishing goes, like I said, we're not chocolate milk, so we're still in the game. We're still fishing topwater and having, catching numbers of fish and big fish. And other than that, small rain events here and there might put a little bit of color in the water, in which case, I've been fishing some brighter streamers and stuff like that to combat that. But topwater is still viable. With the higher water, I tend to stick pretty tight to the bank and, fishing any slack sections that you can find and that kind of thing. But if you can get out there and work for them, you can still catch fish. And like I said, hopefully the water will be down a little bit by the weekend, without any more rain coming our way.
Got it. And how much longer do you expect your cicada bite to hang on?
That's a good question. So I have not seen, usually in the summertime, there's a solid week where you're just seeing those things everywhere dead. They've completed their life cycle and they're falling in the river and getting eaten. And, you'll hook a smallmouth and he'll spit up 2 or 3 or 5 of them on the way back to the boat. And it's madness with the cicadas for a week or maybe 2. And I haven't seen that yet. I have seen, they've been eating those black and dark green topwater bugs really well the last, week and a half or so. But certainly, typically it'll be, the end of the first or second week of September. So we've still got time. and we don't have ideal conditions for that kind of fishing right now, but they'll still eat a good cicada imitation. And like I said, if we get some little lower water here the next week or so, it should bust wide open.
Got it. And shifting gears on you just a little bit, we have a question for John, and he's got a fall trout fishing question for you. He wanted to get your fly suggestions for fishing white top laurel towards the end of September and the entire month of October.
Yeah. So that's sort of a interesting time of year on our trout streams down here, particularly white top laurel, because it's a true mountain freestone stream. It doesn't have the rich water quality that some of our other streams do. And it can it gets fairly low in sort of the early fall through fall time frame, unless we have a lot of rain. But up through, again, depending on the year, whether it's a cold, wet year or a warm, dry year, up through usually the end of September, the terrestrial fishing can be good. So you're looking at just sort of big, bushy attractor dry flies like humpies and stimulators and Dave's hoppers and that kind of thing. And then, your foam beetles and ants and stuff like that all do well through sort of the late summer, early fall time frame. And droppers like the classic green weenie, and then you're just sort of what I consider to be small brown things, pheasant tails and hare's ears and Frenchies all do pretty well as droppers if you're going to fish terrestrial dry flies. And then as we get into October, late September, October, there's our stick caddis becomes a little more important. You can fish dry flies like the Goddard's caddis, and then like stick bait caddis nymphs as well, like a dark brown CK nymph works well for that, or a true like case caddis nymph works well. And then October, frankly, can be kind of an in-between time. I mean, you don't have, once we get a couple of hard frosts and the terrestrial insects start to die off, you don't have much of that. And there's not really, other than those case caddis, the stick caddis, there's not really many bugs that are going through emergences that time of year. You're fishing just sort of what's generally always there, stonefly nymphs and mayfly and caddisfly nymphs, and then midges are the ones that I would lean heavily on that time of year. But October can be kind of a strange in-between time, and certainly you get leaf drops that time of year, as we get later into October, maybe early November, can kind of clog the streams up, and that's a time I generally try to avoid just because it becomes frustrating and you have to compete for the trout's attention with leaves and sticks and stuff like that floating down the stream. And the lower the creeks get, the more frustrating that becomes, because the leaves just kind of hang there and don't really go anywhere. But that's what I would suggest for sort of September through like the end of October, and then certainly through November in the wintertime, you're just kind of riding with those, what's always in the creek, stoneflies, and then mayfly and caddisfly nymphs and midges, the stuff that's always there. But yeah, that's what I would do.
Got it. And, folks, we love questions on the articulate fly. If you've got a question, if you can email them in, or you can send them to us on our Facebook or Instagram page. And if we use your question, I'll send you some articulate fly swag, and you'll get it into a drawing for some cool stuff from Matt at the end of the season. And to keep the tradition alive, Matt, what are you writing this week for the Rural Virginian?
Yeah, so this column that came out today, is about foraging for wild mushrooms, specifically the chanterelles, which is a super easy to identify species and group of species, and super tasty. It's considered a delicacy a lot of places, but this sort of the opposite, the good side to having a bunch of rain this month, last month in August, is that a lot of mushrooms popped up in the last month or so. So I've been running into them just out trout fishing and doing other things in the mountains the last couple of weeks. And if you kind of pay attention to your surroundings, it's a mushroom that grows a lot of places, from the high elevations here all the way to the low elevations, sort of in the eastern part of the state, and they're really tasty. And if you keep your eyes open, you might be able to pick up a few. So that column just kind of gives you an idea of what to look for and what to do with them and all that kind of thing.
Well, very cool. Well, I'll drop a link to that article in the show notes. And before I let you hop, why don't you let folks know where they can find you, so maybe they can sneak in the tail end of smallmouth season in Southwest Virginia, or get primed to go chase muskie with you?
Yeah. So, my September is pretty much, it is 100% solid. But I've still got some stuff in October, and then, we're starting to think about, trout and muskie in the fall and the winter. But the website is MattReillyFlyFishing.com. And you can send me an email or give me a phone call or whatever you'd like to do. I'd love to hear from you. All that stuff's on the website. So looking forward to it.
Well, very cool. Well, listen, folks, get out there and catch a few this weekend. If the water's up, just be a smart waiter and take your waiting staff, and have a great holiday weekend. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Matt.
Tight lines, Marvin.